Hello everyone, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be looking at stencils. Now obviously stencils you can use on paper and they're used very extensively in card making and also mixed media and other types of crafts. Even painting walls back in the day. If you're a child of the 80s like I was, I definitely remember when I got my first home doing some stenciling around the walls. So stencils have been around a long time. They can be used in different ways. But today we're just going to have a look at a couple of techniques involved with the gel plate because they can be used there quite nicely. I'm just going to show a couple of simple techniques today. Now, what I'm first going to do, I've got my gel plate all ready to go. So I'm just going to put some colours out. One of the things I will say is I started to work with a glass plate to the side because a lot of my paints, they're fairly cheap. Some of them, they blob out onto the gel plate or onto the brayer, particularly given that I'm working on such a small one. And sometimes it's nice to just put them to one side somewhere else. If you've got another gel plate, I suppose you could do that. And it just allows you to sort of calibrate exactly how much of the paint that you're using when you're putting it on. So I'm blobbing it on here, and it's actually pouring out of the tubes, which is really unhelpful actually, because I'm going to waste some of this paint, I think. Right, okay, so what I wanted to do was try and go in with a few colours. This may or may not go very well. We'll never know, do we, till we try. And that's always my motto, is get in there and try. I'm just rolling it off each time. And it's like anything, this particular sort of technique of using gel plates is, even experienced people will tell you don't always know what you're going to get. So I'm just layering on some colours there. I've got my leaf stencil. This is quite a complicated one actually. I wouldn't normally use complicated stencils on my plate, but I'm just going to lay that down like that onto the plate. Okay, now you can see what we've got there. We can see the leaves through it. But what we can do is grab my cut up piece of paper. Hope that I end up with one which is nice and thick rather than one which isn't. And we're just going to lay that down on top. Now what I'm trying to do here is to burnish as we normally do, but I'm trying to pick up the paint through the stencil. It sometimes is not that successful. It just depends. And I'm trying not to let it move. Got this piece of paper that you can see here with a nice, I think it's a histogram on. I used to work in a numbers-based environment. So we're picking that up, and actually that's really quite a beautiful print that we've got there, you know, straight off. So what we're going to do is we're just going to lift that stencil off. We can see we've got the rest of the image there where we haven't picked off because the stencil was protecting the plate. I'm just going to throw that into the water. Now, just for this first example, we can just go in and pick that up. Okay, pick up what's on the plate. And it might be to your taste, it might not. It's actually quite interesting. It'd be nice if we'd had a little bit more detail here, but you can see the difference between the prints. We've got what we picked up through the stencil, and then we've got what was left on the plate once we'd taken that stencil away, which in this case is the the veins on the leaf, whereas you can see that it's white here, then we're left with the detail on the plate here. So if you think about it, that's quite, you know, makes sense. All right, so the next one we're going to do, we're going to repeat this process and just put a background on it, which is not strictly speaking another technique. I just need to rinse off my stencils. I'm going to pause this video and come back. Okay, so here we are again. Now this time we're going to have to have a little patience because we're going to need to let the paint dry on the plate a little bit before we add our next colour. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this. I'm just kind of, no, obviously you could use just one colour, couldn't you? You don't have to be doing what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of trying to layer on some colours to get a little bit more interest into the print. But you could just roll out the one colour. So I've got my stencil back again. We're just laying it down, and we're going to do the same thing again actually. Just burnishing to try and pick up that. So we're repeating this process. And it is actually exactly the same. I'm just going to put a background layer on this. So trying to sort of pick up as much as I can. Oh, that's quite nice. Now, if you wanted to, you could go in, so we've got something similar to last time actually there, haven't we? You could go in and sort of remove more if you wanted to in between with a baby wipe or just a cloth. If you wanted to pick up more, you could. Right, so this time we're just going to lift the stencil off, again put it into our water and just let that dry a little bit before we put our final layer on. So I'm just trying to have a look. It's quite warm here again today, so it could be that we don't have to wait too long, but I'll pause. Okay, so I've let that image dry on the plate, and that also gave me an opportunity to clean off my brayer because there were quite sort of dark colours, muddy colours there, so I wanted to just make sure I started, even though I'd rolled it off on a bit of paper. Sometimes it's nice to just clean your brayer as well. So I've got a fair bit of paint on here because this is my splodgy old paint, so I'm just trying to get a thin enough layer. I'm trying to sort of get it so I can still see that print through it. Now we're going to pop in with our paper to do our pull. We'll get this around the right way, won't we? Don't think we want to read all that typeface through the stencil. It's not very interesting. It's technical stuff, but it's not interesting. Past life, moved on. Happier than I've ever been, really. Right, so there we go. And that's a completely different effect that we're getting there. That's actually really rather beautiful. I like it. I could have done different colours, I suppose. So let's have a look. Look at the 3 different things. I've mixed these up now. I've got old ones lying around here. Oh my goodness, I think it might have been that one. So number 1, number 2 and number 3. So you can see the different effects that you'll get if you move those out of the way. I think that's rather nice. And of course, with that background, you could have altered. You could have just not done all cream. You could have used a mixture of cream and white, or some other colour behind. But I think this sort of allows you to frame what we, the leaves that we've got there. So that's beautiful. That's a couple of techniques. Now the next one I want to show you quickly because there's variations of this. So what I'm going to do is probably split the video into 2 parts so that I can do this one and then do another one. Okay, so I'll just clean the plate off quickly so I can do this as quick as possible. And now I'll use a different stencil this time. Back to my lovely dots and different colour paint. I'm going to use a pink this time. Got a lot lying around on my bit of glass here actually, so I'm going to pause and use that up on something because I hate the waste, as you know. Hate the waste. So this one I just need to be a little bit careful with the stencil. Get some paint on there and that should hold it pretty much in place. I'm just rolling or brayering over the stencil on the plate. Now it's not making contact with the plate, it's kind of riding above it because of the stencil. So you're not getting that sort of thick colour actually. Right, so if I lift this off, so this time we put the stencil on the plate before the paint. Throw that in my dirty water, and the water is like murky. It looks like, oh, I don't know, I'm not even going to say what it looks like, but it needs changing. But I don't put my water down the sink. I chuck it outside because the acrylic, I don't really want that going down my sink and blocking things up. So, okay, so now we can go in, just lift that print, and then we'll get some lovely dots. You'll get what you kind of see there. Or we can just wait and put our background, which is what we'll do. Okay, so let that dry again. Now for the background, I'm just rolling this off a little bit off over here. My brayer actually is a little dirty, which is unfortunate because, when you roll it off on a piece of paper, it is supposed to, in theory, take that colour off so that you can use it. But this has left a bit of a tinge, so we don't know what we're going to get. And I guess let's try and see how heavy that's gone on. That's pretty bad. I'm going to do like that. And I said, didn't I, that we could possibly change the colours in the background a little bit. I'll try and blend that in. So we've got like a white and a cream going on there. May not make a lot of difference. probably overworked that a little bit. So now we're going to do our pull. Got another nice graph there for you to look at. So you don't have to use rubbish bits of paper like I do. You could actually use nice bits of paper if you wish. There we go. We'll pull that. So you're getting a little bit of variation in the background as well because of the fact that you varied the background. I would maybe a bit too much of a line going across there, to be honest. It probably should have been worked in a little bit more. Okay, so that's where we've put the stencil on the plate first to get these lovely crisp circles. And there's another example that I can show you with that, but I'm probably going to leave that to another video. Still got some paint there on the plate, and I've got some paint here on my glass. So let's try and see if we can get something else off there. May or may not. It's quite good value, this technique. I mean, you're using your paints. You can buy the paints fairly cheaply. And you get multiple prints off your plate. So you can kind of almost keep going if you're clever about how you layer things. Oh, and that's a much more subtle effect, isn't it? I think I actually even prefer that, to be honest. I think I'm more likely to have a use for that as a background. That would make quite a nice background for a birthday card, child's birthday card. Okay, so I'll probably throw in the towel there and wipe that. So that was a few techniques for you to try using stencils on the gel plate. Obviously, when we get to using stencils on just plain paper, there's a slight, there's differences in how you apply the paint or how you apply the medium, which might be chalks, might be distress sprays, might be any kind of thing really. So we'll look at those as a separate project. But thanks for joining me today, and I'll do another video showing the other technique, which is a layered stencil technique. So do come back. Bye.